us find peace. Let us find love.
So, thank you so much. And that's true. That's our theme, is being present. So here in this last Sunday in August, let's align with this truth statement. And we here in Unity, we know that words express our spiritual life to the best ability that words can. So we align our thoughts and our words with spiritual truth. And we do it how many times? 3 times. All right. Just because it helps you get it in your mind. And we align with this and we affirm it, not to make it true, but why? It is true. All right, so here we go. So I invite you to engage your energy system. You can use some hand motions. You can follow mine or make your own up, because I don't ever know what I'm going to do. So you go right ahead. Okay, here we go. I am present in the present, and divine understanding guides me. Let's align with it again. I am present in the present, and divine understanding guides me. I am present in the present, and divine understanding guides me. And with that, let's just take a minute and center ourselves, knowing that the teacher's inside of us, right? Thank you, God, that each of us is led by our inner Christ spiritual teacher, our spiritual life. Amen. Amen. All right. So there was this man who just really wanted to grow spiritually a lot. He was just really into this, and he just was sure that somewhere there was some amazing, wise spiritual teacher that was going to give him the answers, right? Can you relate to this? All right, so he went to great lengths to discover this person, and he read a lot of books, and he talked to a lot of people, and he went to a lot of workshops, and finally he heard about this man that lived way up in a cave in the Himalayas, and he decided he was going to travel there, and he was going to make the big trek up there, and he was going to talk to this really, really wise teacher that was going to give him the key to life, right? We're all looking for this, aren't we? All right. Oh. So he does this. So he gets his plane ticket, which is not cheap. All right. And he goes to Nepal, and he makes this trek up into the place where this wise spiritual teacher is. And he's not the only one. There's like this line of hundreds of people. So he has to get in line, right, to get in, to have an audience in the cave with this great wise teacher. So as he's waiting for days to get his audience, as he's in line and waiting to get in to see this teacher, to go into the cave, he notices that when people come out, some of them stay in for an hour, some of them stay in for a couple hours, some of them, stay in for 20 minutes or whatever. He's just amazed, but nobody just goes right in and out. I mean, they're just kind of in there for a while, and they all come out, and they're just ecstatic, and they're just glowing, and it's all great, and he just can't wait. So it comes to his turn, and he goes in there, and there's the great teacher sitting there cross-legged, and with his robes and his beard and his hair and the whole ball of wax, and he's just sitting there, and the man comes in, and he says, "Oh, great teacher," he says, "I want to know, what is it that will bring me into harmony with myself?" And he just can't wait to hear this secret of life. And the teacher looks at him, and he says, "Well, I don't know about you, but I bought myself a tuning fork. Next." That's truly a great teacher. That's a great teacher, because what he said to that man was, "Really? Really? Look inside yourself, buddy. Look inside yourself. What is it that you are tuning into? What level of your life are you paying attention to? Are you just looking around out there and looking for something out there that's going to make your life work for you? Are you looking at your life and thinking, well, my life's pretty boring, pretty mundane, I just go to the grocery store, I take care of my kids, I go to work, I take care of my grandkids, I do this, I do that, pretty boring, not worth much, just kind of doing the daily grind." He said, tune in to that other level of life, and then you're going to find something amazing. Sometimes we do have to take big outer journeys. We do. We need to act in life. We need to do what we need to do in life. And when we really discover what we discover through all these journeys that we take, which are fine and good, it's just what they bring us to, if we're willing to tune in to that true spirituality, is where they bring us back to, is our very own feet, right? They bring us right back to the literal ground on which we're standing. They bring us back to home within ourselves. They bring us to that Jesus Christ understanding, as well as the understanding of all great spiritual teachers, which is, it's inside of you. Your spiritual life is who you are. God is our source. God is creator. God is that one that is your divine parent, if you want to frame it like that. God is that within you, which is your divine source. God is that life that is the life of this amazing universe. And so if you want to find those major, profound answers to living, guess what? Tune in to who you are. Tune in to that life that is within you. And you got to be present to win, right? You got to be present to the present. You got to be present to yourself. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of our Unity movement, said it this way, and I just happened to be reading back in this book again this week, in the 12 Powers book about our 12 Christ aspects of our spiritual nature, and this is in the chapter on will. I've read this probably 15 times, but it stood out to me. I was like, oh my goodness, well, how about that? Thank you, Charles, for writing this. Okay, so here's what he said. He wrote, "We must believe in the higher powers and be immersed in the omnipresent water of life. If we fail," here's the kicker, "if we fail to exercise faith in things spiritual, we are condemned to," and he didn't mince any words, "the prison of materiality." If we fail to tune in to that life that is our spiritual life, that is source, we are going to be like the little rat on the wheel. That's going to be all there is to it. You know, going around and around and around till you don't anymore. And he's saying to us, there's something much deeper, something much finer. This is what Jesus understood so powerfully. That's his teaching, is that God is our Father, God is our Mother, God is that source, and that when we tune into that, then that's when we find the meaning of life. That's when we find that no matter what we do, when we're doing it with some awareness from that spiritual life, it is profound, and we are way expressing the life that we're meant to express. I think it was Mother Teresa that said something to the effect of, we may not be able to do great things, but we can do small things with great love. And that's what transforms us. That old thing about, are you just chopping stone or are you building a cathedral? It's all about what meaning we give and where we're coming from, what level of life we're tuned into in terms of what's happening to us. You can't break you can't break spiritual law, but you can't break natural law. I mean, you can't, gravity's gravity, it's happening, in the material plane. What we can do as we tune into spiritual law is we can understand that love and harmony and oneness, they don't break natural law, but what they do is they open up space within it. And so that we find that good things come to us because they're coming through us. I have a silly little example that I want to share with you. This weekend, I thought, well, I'd love to have lunch with a friend, and I'd contacted a friend, and she couldn't have lunch because she was really not feeling well. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So then I just kept having this intuition to go to a certain restaurant and have lunch by myself. I'm like, why? It just wouldn't leave me alone. And I like the restaurant, but I don't go very much, and I'm like, whatever. So I admit that I cannot always tell the difference between my intuition and my compulsive nature. I can't always tell the difference. But I'm getting better at it. And this one I thought, no, this is clear. This is an intuition. Whatever. It didn't matter. I had time, So, but I dawdled. I thought, well, if I'm going to go to that restaurant, it's on the right side of a busy street, and I know that what's right before it, between that restaurant and my house on the right side of that busy street, is half-price books. So I'm going to stop at half-price books because I need more books, right? Ha ha. Yeah, just one more. But I'm going to stop there because if I go to the restaurant first and then come back, then I'll have to make a left turn, and then I can't make, I'm going through all this in my head. So I'm like, okay. So by now it's getting late in the day. It's way past lunchtime. So it's probably about 2 o'clock or whatever, but I go to Half Price Books. I had a great time. I spent a long time there and only bought 3 cheap books. It was good. Okay. But anyway, so I'm hanging out at Half Price Books, and then it's probably, I don't know what time, it's probably almost 3 o'clock. So then it's way past lunch. So anyway, so I go into the restaurant, and they have outside seating, and it's really, it was hot. It's probably 100 degrees almost. But I thought, I want to sit outside because I know it's shady, and inside it's noisy. So I said, okay, I'd like to sit outside. So they put me outside, and I'm sitting outside and getting ready to order. And then I start looking around because I think it smells like somebody's smoking out here. And I'm like, I didn't know they let people smoke out on the patio, and I should have stayed inside. And I'm going through this thing in my head. And then, but I look around to see who's smoking. There weren't many people out there. And nobody was, because they have no smoking signs out there. So I don't know where this was coming from. But anyway, so I looked back there, and there's this friend of mine that I haven't seen for months. And I'm like, ah! So he comes over, and we have a wonderful, long chat. I hadn't seen him for months, had no idea he was there. That's how Spirit works. That's a small thing. But that's how it works, is that when we tune in to that level of life, when we tune into our intuition, then whatever is needed moves into, and it was so much fun. It was so good to see him and have a nice visit. It's just what I needed. And I think for him too, just to catch up. That's what happens when we tune into that level of life in those ways that seem small, but they're fulfilling, and they feed us and they nourish our souls. And those ways that seem to be larger, whatever it is that we're feeling like we're needing in our lives, whatever abundance it is that we're feeling like we're needing. That's what happens when we tune into that greater power, to those higher powers, as Charles Fillmore phrased it. It's our spiritual life. Because what's happening is that we're in harmony, that we're in tune with living. So when we ask ourselves the question, what is it that I have to live on? Usually when we ask that question of ourselves or somebody else, what do you have to live on? Usually that means like, how much money have you got in the bank? Are you doing okay? Or how much money do I have in the bank? Am I doing okay? And fine, that's a legitimate question. And yet that's a much deeper question, because what we have to live on is infinite source. What we have to live on is infinite harmony. What we have to live on is infinite love. What we have to live on is infinite abundance. And as we learn to tune into that, what happens for us is that the abundance of living radiates through us, and our lives become meaningful to us. And we make a big difference to other people, because when we tune in, we make a vibration that reminds them, oh, there's something that I can tune into as well, something within me. And that's what we're called to do as people that are unfolding spiritually. This week I was here, but the week prior to last Sunday, I and Sarah Stewart were at Unity Village. I went a few days early, as I said a couple of Sundays ago, and I spent some time in the archives researching, and you'll hear more about that later on, and as that unfolds, and some of the talks and some things I'm going to be writing. And also, I was there to present and to participate in the Fillmore Festival, and Sarah was there. She's got her shirt on from the Fillmore Festival. So there she goes. It was a great experience, wasn't it?
Phenomenal.
Yes. It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
It's very heart-lifting.
Heart-lifting? Talk to Sarah afterwards and find out more. It was good. I'm not going to put her on the spot and make her come up here. Yeah, I almost did, but I'm not going to. Okay. But what happened there is that, for me, there were about 100 people in attendance. It's already scheduled for next year. The information is in your bulletin. If you want to stay at Unity Village on the grounds, sign up now. Seriously. I hope we'll have a big group. That's Sarah and my goal, that we have a big group from our church that goes. It was a lot of fun and, as she said, very uplifting. It was just a joyful experience. And the theme for this year was the three legacies that the Fillmores, who were the co-founders of our Unity movement back in the late 1800s, left us, and how those relate to today. And the three legacies that they left us were the legacy of thought, meaning that as we pay attention to our thinking, as we pay attention to our actions that come from that we have these creative lives. The legacy of prayer, that as we tune in to pray and meditate, as we open up to those higher energies through our daily practice, that we find energy and empowerment and a great life that expresses through us. And the legacy of love. And that was, for me, one of the sweetest ones, that to hear about even more in more depth the love that was what the Fillmores were, that everything was done in love, everything was done in kindness. And it was pointed out that the reason that Unity Village is there today, the reason that our Unity movement, our Unity churches are here today, is simply because of love. Because they were willing to love. They were willing to give love in return for everything and to love people. And through that legacy that we are here today, that we are part of this Unity movement and able to participate in prayer, in thought, and therefore in giving our good. And so it's the thing that I am very grateful for is to be able to be a participant in this Unity way of life, because it is a wonderful way to live the Jesus Christ message, to live these Jesus Christ principles. And all of it is encouraging us to be ourselves. And Myrtle Fillmore wrote this, and she wrote a lot of letters in response to people's prayer requests. And this is an excerpt from a letter that she wrote. She wrote, "To live by the Christ pattern does not mean that we are to seek to conform our individual lives to the ways and teachings of another, but that we are responding to the divine impulse within." And that's something that I'm really grateful for about the Unity legacies and about the Jesus Christ legacy, is that it's not saying be somebody else, it's say be yourself. Be who you are. You know, as you tune in to those higher energies, you're going to find what it is that you really love, what it is that you're really talented at, what it is that you're being guided to do. And all of us are already doing that to a large extent. It's just the invitation to do it more fully and more deeply and more richly. To let go of those messages that would say, don't be you, you know? It's saying, let go of your illusion of control. You know, people sometimes think, well, I'm going to let go of control. I'm like, good luck. You didn't have it anyway. You have the illusion that you do. And that's what we let go of. That's what the outer self's always worrying about out there, right? But we bring ourselves into balance, and we live that paradox that I can have a good life a meaningful life and a fulfilling life as I tune in. I'm going to share with you this scripture. It's one which I really love, one that is probably familiar to you, and it's from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. And it's the one that's sometimes traditionally called the widow's mite. M-I-T-E, but I'd like to call it the widow's mite, M-I-G-H-T, because that's what it's really about. So here, I'm going to invite you to hear this with your metaphysical ears, and we'll talk about it. So Jesus looked up, and he was in the temple. He looked up, and he saw rich people putting their gifts into the treasury. And he also saw a poor widow put in 2 small copper coins. And Jesus said, "Truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them." Jesus was always saying stuff like that, right? He was always turning things upside down because, of course, we think, oh, well, somebody wrote a big check. You know, they were putting in a lot. And they are. There's nothing to put that down. And he's turning things upside down. He's saying, and there's more to it than that. There's something deeper going on. He's not putting people down. He's simply saying, let's look a little deeper here and see what's going on. And so he says, truly, I tell you, this poor widow has put in more than all of them, for all of them have contributed out of their abundance, or some translations say out of their surplus. But she, out of her poverty, has put in all she had to live on. Jesus was never one to praise poverty or to praise deprivation. That is not what he was talking about. He was a much smarter man than that, and had much more depth than that. There's many ways to interpret everything, but I want to share with you a metaphysical and a spiritual interpretation of this. What he's saying is that woman gave out of the depths of who she is. That woman gave herself, because she understands that even though a widow in that culture was a woman in dire straits because she didn't have a man to provide for her, which in that culture was a big challenge. So on the outer, people would look at her and call her a poor widow. Poor thing, she didn't have anything. But she knew something different. She knew that if she gave from the depths of her being, she knew who her source was. She knew that if she gave her gift from the place of blessing, that it was going to expand. She was not worried about her life. If she'd been worried about her life, do you think she would have put in her last 2 pennies? Nobody ever talks about that. She wasn't worried about it, right? She knew that God was her source, that one way or the other, she was just fine. And so she was willing to give from the depths of her being. You know, sacrifice, in a sense, you might say, well, she sacrificed, you know. Sacrifice means to make sacred. It means to make the connection. It means with God. It means to give from your highest awareness of who you are. To be willing to step out, to take a risk, to give your talents, to give your abilities, to give your thoughts, to be willing to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. Because of who you are. Do you know if every one of us, to the degree that we are who we are and say what we really think, that we're going to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable? That's what's going to happen, because we're going to be speaking from that place of depth. We're going to be speaking from that place of a deep reality. We're going to be speaking from that place of truth. And you know what? It makes a wonderful world. It may rock things at first as it disturbs ourselves and other people. And yet, as we move forward in that, what happens is all that's fake just dissolves. And we're not just giving, you know, from the surface. We're not just tipping, but we're giving from the depths of our being. We're giving from the reality of who we are. And we can afford to give from abundance in whatever ways that we give, because we know that God is our source. Giving is about participating. It's about being yourself. It's about getting out there and getting off the sidelines and saying, God, who is it that you brought me here to be? What is it that is my gift to give? And thank you for the ways I'm already doing it, and give me the courage, the energy, and the strength to do it ever more fully. So I leave you with this poem by Rumi, the great Sufi mystic. And Sufism is Islamic mysticism. So here's what Rumi had to say to us about who we are. He wrote, "Do you know what you are? You're a manuscript of a divine letter. You are a mirror reflecting a noble face. This universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything you want, you already are that." Let's pray. Sweet Spirit that lives within us and all around us and everything and everybody, we're grateful that we do have the courage, the energy, the joy, the willingness to go forth and be that which we already are. Thank you, God, that we have infinite good to live on. And so it is. Amen.